Hello and welcome to A Celtic World, the YouTube channel for Celtic fans all over the world, from Cromarty to Kuala Lumpur, from Postle Park to Perth. We connect Celtic fans all across the planet at these times. So have a look at those, work out what that means to you, and then come and join us. Come indeed, all ye rambling boys of pleasure and ladies of easy leisure. As I introduce our lineup today, representing Perth, we're joined by Paul. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good, Gav. Good evening.
Good evening to you. And the rock around which Kuala Lumpur CSC is built, we have David.
Good evening, and I'm going to take it nice and easy for the first half of the show, and then I'm going to bring out all of the excitement in the second half, if that's okay with everyone.
Oh, well, if that doesn't whet everyone's appetite for what's ahead, I don't know what will. I'm also going to introduce our man behind enemy lines in Govan. It's Kaiser. Oh, no, sorry, Kaiser hasn't shown up. Dear, oh dear. Well, if he does, we'll add him to the chat. Red Scotland, looking forward to tonight's show. This will be a hoot. And I see other comments which are about the game, but, you know, we're not going to get straight into that. We are first going to talk, well, we are going to talk about St Johnstone. And as I fill in, as I click a few buttons here, before going straight into the conversation about the game itself, we're going to have a little bit of pre-review, if you like. Did you know St Johnstone are the only professional football club in Britain with the letter J in their name?
I did know that.
It's
a brilliant little fact. Yep.
No.
McDermott Park. What can you tell me about McDermott Park? It's the first purpose-built all-seater stadium in the UK. Did you know that?
No.
Do you know why it's called McDermott Park?
As in not converted. Yeah, so there was other all-seaters first, but they were converted old stadiums with standing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And why is it called McDermott Park?
I did know this, but it's the years have not been kind to my memory.
Well, the land was donated by a local farmer. Bruce McDermott donated 16 acres of his land on which the stadium now stands. His donation of his berry and barley fields are a gift to the people of Perth. At the insistence of St Johnstone, he accepted 20% shareholding and the title of honorary club president. So that's pretty good. I have another point to make. I realized when I was watching the game is there's just too many colours going on there, isn't there?
And make up your mind.
And it's been the same since the beginning, I think. They started with these colours. I don't think they've ever bothered to do anything other than maybe add the white saints or whatever on that. You can see the ST on that side. But from memory, they've always had these weird colours. And yeah, they've kind of just left them be.
But the red has no place. The blue and yellow, fair enough. They're in their strips and everything, aren't they?
I think they often have a bit of red in their away kit. So potentially.
But I mean, red and blue, that's not great. But if you're going to include red and blue, it's definitely only two colours. Don't have any more. Red, blue, and yellow.
Very Lego.
That's incredibly Lego. That's exactly what I think. So let's get on with the game then. Naming these shows as we do before the key games are played can be a bit tricky because you have to leave your options open. Saint and Grievances is the name of today's stream. And maybe David can tell us what that's a nod to.
Saint and Grievesy, during the 70s, must-watch football double act.
80s as well. And even maybe borderline early 90s.
80s, probably 80s as well, yeah. 80s as well, yeah, definitely, for sure, yeah. So 70s is the 80s.
They are there, the lovable pair.
Yep.
St John, dressed in traditional Scottish attire, the kind of clothes you guys grew up in. And Grievesy dressed as what are they called again?
Pearly King.
Pearly King. They were it was a fun show, wasn't it? It was on Saturdays about lunchtime, so pre-game.
Yeah, ITV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think if I remember seeing old clips of them, that what they said and got away with in those days, you just simply would not anymore. Not that they were particularly naughty, but you just know that they wouldn't get away with it. The woke and right brigade.
Well, that's just a generational thing, right?
It is.
But yeah, it was good. It was good quality viewing of the time. They didn't take themselves or the show too seriously, despite their ample experience in the game at a top level.
They were generally popular. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, as far as it relates to this game, Saints and Grievances, I chose that name because we knew rightly that regardless of the result or indeed the performance, the fans would still have some legitimate grievances after the game because we're not playing well. And even if we're top of the league and winning games, David, that game we just watched, it told exactly that story, really, didn't it?
Well, it just talked to everything that we knew for several weeks leading up to that. I thought you could tell within the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes that this was going to go through the same rigmarole of passy, sidey, wait and just see and allow them to collect themselves and do the same thing. Exposed in areas that we've been exposed in since the summer. So it's rinse and repeat. Well, it certainly looked as if it was going to be that way from the first half.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, let's do our usual thing and talk through starting lineup first of all, Paul. What of note was there? I was annoyed there was no sign of Tilio. I want to see some Tilio, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And whilst he didn't do anything too outrageously amazing in his little cameo the other week, he showed enough intent to I think warrant a place on the bench. At least you wouldn't have expected him to start there, but you certainly have hoped that he would have got some time on the bench. That was the main one. Obviously, we're still seeing Nat Phillips appear on every bench, despite not really being utilised. I think this must be contractual if he's fit, and maybe Bernardo as well. If they're fit as part of their loan, they've got to be in the match day squad, because there doesn't really seem to be any other reason to put Phillips in there. Champions League's now done. He's not shown enough to me that he would, well, if he'd shown enough, he would be in the team, right? And he isn't. So he's obviously going back in January. So unless he's contractually obliged to be there as part of his loan, then why wouldn't you get Nawrocki or Lagerbielka in the squad and at least put some trust in them for, if they're needed from the bench, and even maybe, if the game had been more comfortable and we'd won well ahead of time, potentially rotate some people in. I'd have liked to see the squad mixed up a bit more in general, to go back to kind of the same team as the other night, bar or two. We've seen what that does, and it didn't fill us with much excitement or great hope that it was going to be anything spectacular. And it was a bloody awful first half, and only when the subs started to come on did we see an uplift in performance. That kind of, bore fruit. But yeah, just generally, I know we're short, but there's players where we're going back. He's going back to the same players every time, even in a short squad. And there's players there that showed in their, relatively brief cameos, they've got something to offer in this team, at least even just, extra energy and hunger. And hopefully that's the start of a more rotation over the coming weeks.
Yeah, you're breaking up a wee bit for me, Paul. I don't know if David sees the same.
Just a little bit.
Let's talk about the first half then. First half incidents of note. So my summary is offside, Yang. David?
Constantly.
So I saw that in the notes beforehand, and I kind of watched it again. But I thought he was offside. I didn't think there was much to complain about.
I mean, he was constantly offside. That was the story.
Oh, you mean constantly? Yeah. So I thought positionally, I thought he was often pointing the wrong direction. I mean, he was so bad compared to what we have seen him do when he's come on a couple of games ago, where he came on, grabbed it by the scruff of the neck, and actually we thought, whoa, wait a minute, we've got someone here. But he looked so out of place. It was unbelievable. I mean, he damaged the game, and almost irreparably in terms of what it could have cost us. Couldn't put his passes across, which he had been doing in the past. Couldn't take on defenders. Again, often looking the wrong direction, passing the ball backwards. It just didn't look as if he was even on the same team as others. I don't know how he finds his way back into the team now.
What can that be? It's so strange, isn't it? Because as you say, only a few games ago we were all like, "Oh, this boy, he's got a lot of promise. Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops." And now everyone's like, "Yang out." Well, maybe not Yang out quite so far as that, but Paul, you've certainly fallen off the Yang gang train.
I'm not fully bought in member of the Yang gang for now. And you want him to be positive. And he's shown a bit, but I was surprised he even got the nod. And I sort of said previously that on the group chat and to some derision that Michael Johnson should have started. Yang was an empty jersey in Rome, as was James Forrest. And that's another reason for why you'd be disappointed Tilio wasn't making the squad, because neither of them showed anything in the European match to encourage you that they were deserving of even a squad place, really, never mind a start. And I was surprised to see him start, and he played just as poor. Well, he actually played worse than he did in Rome, and that goes some distance because he was hopeless then as well. Maybe it's just a build up of too much games. I don't know how many games and how regularly he was playing them in Korea, but one way or another he's off the boil, and he needs some time out of the team for his own good as much as the team's good enough because you know what it's like, especially at the moment where there's a lot of amped up frustration for bigger issues, right? That the ones we all know, the investment wasn't there when the funds are available, etc., etc. Rinse and repeat. Speaking about it, but there's that built up, and therefore he's going to feel the wrath of that. He's already feeling the wrath of that online, so he's got to be taken out of the firing line for his own protection. Really, he's only 21. He's showed a little bit of snippets. Whether that mounts to anything in the longer term, we don't know. I think it's hard. It would be harsh to write him off entirely. But it was just basic stuff. Like he's just, I don't know. Who knows what? But there could be something going on in his personal life or his background. Who knows? But he was off. He was off it completely. He couldn't. It's cardinal sin to get caught offside if you're a winger, because you can see right along the line he was getting caught off repeatedly. There was a relatively simple crossfield pass that came to him, which could have been controlled either with lifting his boot off the ground or dropping his sort of thigh a bit, and he missed it completely and he went straight out for a throw into St Johnstone. That was kind of relatively early in this first half, and it kind of just dipped further from there. So to me, he can get left out for a little bit of bench time for a little while, just to work some confidence back in. For me, Mikey Johnson starts against Hibs on Wednesday. That's a no-brainer. Yes, he wasn't. People are saying, "Oh, he's." People are bigging up his performance, overly much. That so be it. But he's still the best winger that's available. Even Palmer was a bit hit and miss. So if Palmer starts, it's any one from him and Forrest or Tilio, and Mikey Johnson's showing the most form, which it isn't a high bar at the minute. But yeah, exactly. If you're showing the most form, and he's the thing is he's willing to take on players, right? If you're a winger, you need to be able to take on your man. And he had the beating when he came on the right side, less so when he moved over to the left, but the game was kind of done enough by then. But when he started on the right, he went after that left full back, and he had him on toast every single time. Now his final ball wasn't always there, but just that intent to take his man on immediately up the tempo. So yeah, Yang's got to be left out for his own good for a little while, and we have options. So
it's such a weird scenario to be in, isn't it? Like everyone's saying, like drop these guys, bring in Mikey Johnson. Not that we think he's great, but he's the best of a bad bunch. At least he can try and do something. And until a minute ago, he's getting booed on the pitch. Like
I know, but that's where we're at, right? We're in a very weird situation. We've a lot of injuries. and until they start to come back, or the window opens and we can buy, extra reinforcements, he's the best of a bad lot. And
Crazy.
I don't think
you
anyone
think-
can argue. I don't think anyone in their right mind can argue that he has to start on Wednesday.
Well,
I'd
I'd say
agree.
fair few do. But go ahead,
I
David.
mean,
Who are they playing instead is my question.
No, so I'll go with Mikey Johnson starting. That's absolutely right, based on the weekend's performance. But the problem is you're looking back over 3-4 games and you get inconsistency across the entire team from McGregor. Kyogo, people have said he's not had much service. How much service did he get on Saturday? He couldn't get anything away at all. So it's not just Yang obviously was a severe drop off, right? And as you say, he didn't turn up the other night either. But Sunday was particularly bad. But you look across the team, who's been consistent? Now I'm starting to doubt Palmer and his set piece ability now. That's with penalties, stepping back. He did it again in the first half in the game, where he just stepped back, took one step back and smashed it straight into the wall. Right across the team, we've got this sort of lack of consistency, capability. So you're right, the well is sort of run dry and Mikey Johnson gets the start. But this is
there's a bigger issue here, and the whole team has dropped. So we've got two issues. We've got a bunch of injuries which we know about. We're spread thin as a squad, and then a bunch of the players that have been dragging us through to some degree have had a dip in form all at the same time. So that first half is up there, I think, with the worst halves of football I've seen from a Celtic side in many, many years. We were absolutely dreadful. For me, there wasn't a single player in the starting 11 that had pass marks. They were all, it was just a case of how bad you were. Some of them were worse than others, but nobody could walk off that pitch after the first 45 minutes and say that they'd done okay. They were all dreadful, absolutely dreadful. So that's part, like, good performances have papered over some of the cracks. And to be fair, and obviously, we've all seen Brendan's comments, fuming at halftime, still angry after the game despite the turnaround in fortunes. He got a reaction, but he's got to take some of the blame. Like, he's got to carry some of the can, because he sent them out there. And then they played like they were in second gear, and it's just a matter of time until something happens. So it's all well and good saying, you're a Celtic team, you've got to play at a set level. But where's the fire up the backside before the game starts? Why are we waiting until halftime to get a reaction?
Yeah, who do you think he was most angry with, David, at halftime?
Well, I think Turnbull taking Turnbull off, and I think obviously Yang. I think that was his. I think he made that quite clear. But I think even McGregor got it, because McGregor pointedly said, you don't want these comments coming at you from the gaffer. So McGregor obviously landed, the comments at halftime landed, and he obviously reacted, and we saw a change in him. If you've got to pick out two players, then I think it was Turnbull and Yang, and I think he's that. I don't think either of those two will be seen for some time. But I think it was even right across the park. I think Paul said it. I don't think there was any players in that first half got pass marks. But again, Paul said it. Brendan Rodgers set them up to play that passy back and forth stuff up, across the park, left to right, backwards at times, with none of the skills, even some of the basic skills, to take on teams like that, open them up, and then find your goals. And therefore, he made his substitutions. Good, they came on and clearly made an impact. But he set up the team. And why is it taking him to this point to get the anger out? We've all been saying this for weeks. Why does it take to this point? So good. No, I'm glad, right? Fantastic. He's had this reaction. But it should have happened well before now.
Well, I was thinking Rodgers is one of the only people to get pass marks because of the substitutions, how well they worked. But
there's plenty of players get pass marks for the second half performance, but we can't look at that in isolation in terms of what was contributed in the first half, because it was absolutely hopeless. absolutely hopeless. Even players like, McGregor last season, we would, you on record regularly saying he's always at least an 8 out of 10. Just McGregor, CCV, these players, always an 8 out of 10. McGregor's performance has dropped off. But there's some interesting analysis out there on Twitter that it's probably not just him, right? It's probably how Rodgers is asking him to operate. He's, there's some good, I can't remember the contributor on Twitter that had mentioned this. So apologies, I'm not referencing this properly, but there was a guy with a really good thread that basically showed last season his starting position, albeit he's playing in technically the holding position, his starting position where he was getting on the ball and making passes was much higher up the pitch. Much more of his passes were in a forward direction. Now they're much deeper and they're much more flat or backwards. So you're not telling me that McGregor's just decided to play completely differently from one season to the next. He's clearly got direction from the gaffer, or there's a lack of clear communication on exactly where his role sits in his team now. He's taking the ball deeper. He's not in the half turn anywhere near as often. And more often than not, if somebody plays a through the lines forward pass, it's one of the centre backs. It's not him. So he's not being utilised how he should. We saw a bit more of it second half, but even then, even when he's picking the ball higher up deeper into the St Johnstone half, he was still knocking it off square and asking getting somebody else to play the forward pass. And the goals that, I think the first goal is a good example of that, which he's involved in the play multiple times during the build up to that, but his passing is always flat. And then it's other players that are making the forward pass through the lines.
Let me ask you a question. I want to ask you a question then, right? So I've been reading, watching, and thinking similarly to many people that Kyogo has not been getting the service that he needs to be able to play how he should be playing, right? So I was watching in particular, and I was a particular interest in how he was performing, and he got plenty of service, and he just couldn't seem to get the ball away. Therefore, is it because he's just not had that service, therefore he's just not sharp enough on it? Or is it because he also has been told to play a particular way by Rodgers, and that's why we see that drop? Because he got plenty of service.
Not behind the play though. Like the service he's used to getting where he's really dangerous is it's slipped in behind a defense and he's collecting on the other side. So basically he's got the keeper to beat, or maybe a defender on the keeper to beat. He's receiving the ball further from goal with a defense that's set behind him. He's been asked to be more of a link-up striker. That's not his best position. He's a player that wants to be playing on the last defender, sliding off the shoulder, and picking up scraps and he needs good quality forward passes, which would typically have been played by Jota and McGregor and any one of Moy, Hatate, or O'Reilly. And look, there's the core of it. You can have a go at all you like about the summer recruitment, and that's obviously, not being up to scratch. But if we don't have all the players missing that we currently have, probably not having this catastrophizing conversation to the same degree. Hatate is a massive miss, an absolutely massive miss, because he's the player that usually plays the more risky through the lines passes. And I've seen a few times, used to see this in the first season. Kyogo would make runs, and the players weren't used to it yet, so they didn't see that run, and they played the ball off to the side and he circled back. But everyone should know where he runs now, and we're just not delivering. Or you're asking somebody like Scales to try and knock it over the top, which he's not bad at, but that's not where we should be expecting to break defenses down.
Okay, well, let's get back to the specifics of the game a little bit. So 3 subs in the second half.
We touching on the goal,
3 or more?
There's.
What's that?
Are we touching on the Saints goal?
Okay, let's talk about their goal. So first of all, Kettlewell, and then Maurizio Sarri, and now who did we just play? St Johnstone manager, Craig Levine. Right, they're all doing the same thing. In swingers, stick it in the 5-yard box. The keeper won't come for it. It'll be mayhem. They've nobody attacking the ball. See if anything breaks our way. They've all been at it in the last few games. And that's exactly what you want to do against Celtic, because we're freaking pathetic at it. Okay, so tell us about that goal. Are you going to tell me that O'Reilly's shirt was pulled and there was a potential handball from the St Johnstone
Well,
striker.
they're all there. We can, I think you can argue the toss about that. It's just piss poor defending again. Graham Carey obviously came through the ranks at Celtic. He's never quite made it. He's been a bit of a journeyman around Scottish football, but he's got great delivery from set piece. You might argue better than most Celtic players have got from a corner. And it's a recurring theme. You're right, Gav. To me, there's a lot of heat getting thrown at Hart again. Obviously, it's perfect for the narrative. We should have got a goalkeeper in the window. We didn't. We should have got a left back. Blah blah blah. He's not the most culpable here. I said this last week that we've got to defend as a unit, and all the defending was crap. It is again. But why are we letting? Why is Hart getting pushed inside his goal? Those defenders have got I've played both striker and defender at a very low level, and as a striker, I always wanted to stand on the keeper's toes. And a proper defender hoof me up in the arse and try and get me out of the way. And as a defender, if you're marking a striker, you're doing everything you can. There's elbows in the ribs. You're throwing your body to put. You got to give your keeper some space. There was none of that. And I don't know what O'Reilly's doing. Never mind the shirt pull. There is a tug, right? But the tug is long gone by the time the ball gets to him, and he fresh ears it. That's mistake one from him. And then to compound it, he basically scores their goal because he kicks it off their player on the goal line. I don't know what he's doing. And he had an absolute shocker first half as well. That was just the icing on his cake. He was dreadful. And luckily, he lifted his game like a lot of them. He got a rock up. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the ones that got a boot up his hole at halftime because he was bloody dreadful. And he set high standards, but you've got to live up to those high standards. It's just an absolute shambles. And yeah, you could technically say, that it dropped off his arm. Yep. There was a little pull. And there's the old classic, if it was the other lot had conceded that goal, they'd have found a way to rule it out. I've got not too many complaints. It's just another example. I've said we should be on the training pitch all week doing penalties. We should also be defending set plays because we are absolutely awful at them. And for everybody that says Scales, is an upgrade on Starfelt, give your head a shake because that's one of the reasons we're awful at defending corners is because Starfelt was brilliant at defending them. He was a classic stopper, head on everything, clear his box. He had some other flaws, but he was very good at defending his box and he was very good at defending set plays, and we are badly missing somebody to do that.
Yeah. As the famous song went, Carl Starfelt rising through the sky. He heads away the crosses and he's tackling in slides. So
yeah, absolutely. We're missing him.
Refer back to those lyrics.
What's their keeper's name? St Johnstone keeper, because I thought he had a better game than Hart.
Meatoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. He looked handy enough. Okay, so at halftime it was incredibly depressing, right? And I said jokingly in our WhatsApp group, don't worry, Mikey Johnson's on now. The game will turn, 3 points in the bag. I can't claim that that's really what I thought. It was more in hope than expectation. But all of the subs worked well, did they not, David?
Oh, they did. So Mikey Johnston immediately made an impact for me. Just running up and taking on a player in the right direction was an improvement from Yang. But he was actually causing them trouble, putting them under stress. He was getting the ball to where behind where that line would have been 10 yards forward in the previous half. He was he wouldn't get every cross in, but he was causing trouble constantly. And with that constant trouble, it allowed the physicality of O to come in. James E. Forrest came on and absolutely did it well. We saw something of James I don't think we've seen for a long time. The speed of him from our own half all the way up. So all three had a huge impact. I thought Mikey Johnston in particular. It was a toss-up for me. I don't know whether or not it was O's physicality and causing trouble in the back heels and all the rest of it, or just Mikey Johnston just bringing that pace and determination and deliberateness of play.
Yeah, Johnson brought a bit of pace, and O showed evidence, which was a bit of a surprise to me, of a pretty refined football brain. I mean, he seemed to know his spatial awareness was good. He knew where people were. little flicks and back heels and stuff. O'Reilly was yards behind him mentally at a couple of times,
Yep.
which is a real shock to think that could be the case. But I'm open to having my opinion influenced by new evidence, Paul, because he's smiling away there like a Cheshire cat. Who do you think influenced the game more, O or Johnson, or was it a combination of those two things? Bit of speed, bit of nous, bit of physicality.
Definitely. Look, Johnson definitely. I've said already. Johnson definitely made a difference, but it was a ridiculously low bar over there. The thing I liked about Johnston was he was willing to come in and out, so he was getting outside his man regularly, which is kind of obvious. The right-footed player, it's easy for him to do. But when he plays on the left, which is his preference, he'll come in off the wing, and then he's on his better foot. But he was happy to come in on his kind of weaker side as well, and that's actually what led to the first goal. He cuts back in and then slides the pass into O'Reilly. O'Reilly sort of gets it into Owen, and he sort of improvises with, it's sort of shot half blocked, and then he improvises with the back heel and causes absolute mayhem, and then it's a great finish by Cal. I think O probably was the bigger influence, and for me, he's the man of the match in that sort of 35-minute cameo, because they didn't know how to deal with him. They couldn't cope with his physicality. As you say, he was actually he was faster up top than a lot of the players around him. He had three clever back heels. One of them obviously led to the opener. But he had two others that the players around him, I think it was either O'Reilly twice or O'Reilly and somebody else. I can't remember, but they weren't on the same wavelength. And then obviously he's involved in the third goal as well. Shows really good strength to hold the ball up and then offload it. They just didn't really have an answer. And all the other, I guess the add on to that is it allowed Kyogo to kind of play off him. And that, I think, that made it harder for him to be picked up. So when there's two centre backs to deal with just Kyogo, pretty easy for one of them to follow him around or communicate or double up on him. But when they've got to deal with O's presence and physicality, and then try and keep an eye on Kyogo, he's picking up those spots between where the holding midfielder would be and the other centre back would be, and it's just a bit more difficult for them to kind of keep on top of that. So I think kind of the two things together, plus Kyogo's extra positioning, plus the fact that generally there was a rocket up them, and the intensity and the pace was up significantly. Like I screaming at the TV in the first half, going, just too many touches. Like everybody had 4, 5, 6 touches,
looking around them.
Yeah, and back and forth, and I'd have another just like one and out or first touch, because they're happy to sit in a low block. You take multiple touches, it just gives them more time to get set, check where they are. It just needs to be played at pace. And a lot of people obviously are getting on Rodgers' back, but when he has played, when this team has played at pace sporadically throughout the season, we've looked unplayable, and we've played some really nice stuff, and it's been up there with some of the best stuff that Ange played. It just hasn't been often enough. And so that's where a lot of the frustration comes in, because we all sit there and we know if you move the ball faster, you'll cause more problems. And yet it's been super pedestrian again, particularly in that first half.
So O'Reilly got the second goal in the first good thing that he did, as far as I could see in the game, and I wasn't expecting it. When you saw the ball going to O'Reilly, and then the referee was kind of going, or not the referee, the commentator was making noises like he just scored. I don't know if it was bright in the sunlight or something, but I didn't see the ball flying into the net, and I couldn't believe it had from O'Reilly in that game. Screamer with the right foot, absolutely gorgeous. So 2 moments of wonder, really. Those 2 goals suddenly were up in the game. Thank goodness. And again, in our WhatsApp conversation, Ian was saying, look, we had to rely on those 2 moments of individual brilliance to get us ahead, but we were significantly better in the second half. And then talk us through the third goal, David.
So we're in our own half, obviously, and we're under pressure. Hart has made a save. We've somehow managed to find our way out of that situation. And then we have the ball comes out. I can't remember exactly how the ball comes out, and we've got James Forrest clearing that ball out, and then the ball is taken up the park, and James, from our own half deep, runs all the way up the park to then take the cross from the left, and then from the outside of his foot takes that. Because I think the way in which he set himself up, the pace and control that he showed, he sent the keeper almost like he didn't know which way he was going to go with that shot, because I thought he was going to go right, and I think the keeper did as well. But the way he struck it, took it left,
Gorgeous,
and it just absolutely beautiful. And it was
nice
so
to
composed, so it was fantastic. So that was just excellent to watch. And that was James Forrest. You knew on his day when he was playing, that's what he would do. He would run like that and create those chances for others or take them himself. So that was lovely to see, because obviously, well, James has not been on his best form, but that was a beautiful.
Well, it's a beautiful moment. And two key people involved in that, really. Iwata, who did brilliantly, took the ball, nipped in, then suddenly there was an opportunity, ran like the wind, released the ball at the right time, perfect pass. Couldn't ask for any more from him than that. The other thing, of course, was Hart's save. Now, I don't want to be a party pooper, but I think there's a bit of hyperbole going on about the quality of that save. I thought
Jerry McCulloch thought it was Gordon Banks-esque on Celtic TV.
No.
I thought it was a very good save. I think you do him a little bit of a disservice, because it's headed down.
It was a decent save, but one that he should make.
He should make it.
There was no pace on the ball, and if you watch, I don't know if you've seen the, the alternative angle they call it. What was that thing called? A different angle.
It's called the alternative angle on Celtic
Is
TV.
it? Well, there you go. That's why it's that. That's why I use that term. You can see it wasn't that far from him. And a part of me thinks, and that's usually my brain, that it was because it wasn't actually that far away from the goalkeeper, from Hart, and his slow reflexes made it look even better. He took a while to go for it.
To be fair, he's shifting one direction to the other. The biggest issue about that is how we've defended again. The defendant's absolutely awful. Alistair Johnston, got issues with him on that. Because it starts from he lets the ball run out of play, and instead of either standing on it or kicking it away, he rolls it back to them and they throw it over his head and his man's away. So he's made one mistake there. Then the ball gets worked back to him and he doesn't put enough pressure on the cross, and the cross comes in, and then both Scales and Taylor are caught under the ball. Neither of them are marking any players, and there's 2 or 3 of them queuing up at the back post. They definitely should have scored. Never mind the save like that. It's pretty poor.
Okay, so then we saw the game out. Was there anything else to talk about before we move on off the game, David? Do you have any other points to make?
No, I think that probably does it justice. I mean, a good result in the end, but it was very definitely a game of 2 completely separate halves. Anything
else to add, Paul?
I think there's a few players there's just a few players put markers down for Wednesday. Even in a really short cameo, I'd be inclined to start Iwata, push McGregor further forward. I think that's worth a try.
Okay, now in a moment we're going to get on to talk about the January transfer window. All around the world. Don't have to be Scottish. Dano's American. We're talking to American CSCs. I sometimes wonder if things are lost in translation occasionally. You know what outwit means?
Outwit. Something is, outwit. That is a very Scottish thing.
What the hell is this club?
Get it right up you. Well, if it's what we're all thinking of, then I'm wondering, when we're not.
I'm not. I think you're right.
The knee slide is becoming a bit of a bee in my bonnet. I hate how the knee slide has become the go-to celebration. They all do it, every Tom, Dick and Harry, all the time. Not only after goals of exceptional quality, but they do it after penalties.
Like in the gym today, if I got down on my knees right now, I wouldn't get back up again. So there's no way I'm doing these legs, that's for sure. Prediction, Gav.
Well, I'm with Pam. 1-1.
Sure, Pam's
I know.
right. We love you, Pam. Yeah.
Call me. Then it's fanning around, waiting on your keeper.
Turn around and throw your arms in the air like you just don't care. Right, Dana?
Absolutely.
Isn't that nice? All those feel-good moments to make somebody want to subscribe. Well done, David. David put that together. What do you think of that, Paul? Was that nice?
Seemed to be left out of it somewhat, but apart from that was okay.
You're
That
going
was
to get
good.
special attention. You're going to get special
was good.
attention now on the next one. And I just created that moment for me to clip.
There you go.
Very good.
It's a bit meta.
Now, I didn't show this earlier, but this will give you an idea of what we're talking about. So we've done Saints and Grievances. Now we're on to the January sales. After that will be Strip, talking about a little segment on Celtic tops. Then the Hibs preview and on to socials. We're already at the 40-minute mark, so we better get a wriggle on. January sales, gentlemen. Now, I fear there's too much of a growing expectation about January, and it's going to be bad. Now, for a start, as I've been saying for a while, I think Turnbull will be off, and I see that's back in the news again. He's the joint top scorer in the league, or was until very recently. I think he still is. But, I see people saying that Turnbull might be off, and Rodgers says he won't lose any sleep if that's the case. So are we already going to start this window by losing talent? Because he is currently useful. How is this January window going to shape up, Paul? Are you worried about how it's going to kick off?
No. I've got to a point where I'm sort of past worrying about stuff that I got no control over. So I think I could be wrong, but I think Rodgers has probably got one or two that he's already working on. He's been very bullish around some of his commentary in recent weeks about the squad not being good enough. Almost the point you're borderline throwing current players under the bus. So unless you are reasonably confident of having additions coming, seems a little bit of a flawed plan psychologically. I don't think we're going to get the wonder quadruple that we all seem to want. The goalkeeper, the left back, the midfielder, and the striker. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's already come out today, I think, or yesterday, and said a replacement for Joe Hart is not on his radar for this window. Which
It's depressing.
apparently there's there's two or three guys that is it the Real Madrid backup goalkeeper we're keen on, but he's obviously in high demand. And then I think is it Kelleher, the Liverpool backup keeper, is apparently those are the two that seem to not be willing to go away. But whether we get them in a January window, I'm not 100% sure. I think we'll sign I think we will sign a striker. We've kind of got to. Kyogo and O will both be at the Asia Cup. I'm kind of on the fence as to whether there seems to be rumors about that Danish guy that
Keith Garden,
we didn't cough up the amount. That seems to be background. My expectation is rather than him, I think we will bring in an experienced striker on loan to kind of plug a gap until we get around to something proper in the summer. So and look, I think you probably have to hope that there's a left back. So yeah, I don't know anything about this Keller guy. I've just, that's the name that keeps coming up. So I think we'll get a few in. I think there'll be a plan to get 2 or 3 in, I would say, of first team ready players, and I expect a fair amount of a clear out now. I don't know how many would be permanent, but I think we will definitely get some bodies out the door on loan. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Turnbull go, because to get the hook at halftime or early in the second half would say to me that, there's a bit of a patience issue with him. And this is the last chance to get any money for him. There's obviously been some ridiculous stories about Serie A and AC Milan for 7 or 8 million, which is clearly nonsense. And it's, that people have come out and said that's not happening. But I could see him going to Italy. The pace of the game would suit him. But,
it up
and
there.
there's lots of other young Scottish players that have gone there and pushed their career on. We won't be getting 7 or 8 million for him with 6 months left in his contract, but I could see him going to the bottom half teams in that league potentially, maybe 2 or 3 mil.
I saw a report today that Avispa Fukuoka are seeking a permanent deal for Itaguchi, who's done very well by all accounts, David. So he'll probably go, and that's no great loss. I suspect Turnbull will go, and that is quite a loss, considering his contribution so far this season. Anybody else might go that we don't want to see go?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think obviously Phillips will go back. I think Bernardo's the whole season, so he'll probably still be around unless we decide to cut it short. If we add bodies, you would expect players like Juan to go out on loan.
Kobayashi.
Probably Kobayashi. But the obvious thing with those is they go back to where the countries they came from, which to me is a massive
so much
mistake.
good.
If they're only to me, you only send them back there if you never expect them to return. If you think you've got half a chance of them turning into a player, you've got to loan them to a Premier League team if you can convince them to take them, because that's how you work out if they're capable in this league. Now, everybody knows my position on Scales. I don't think he's good enough, albeit that he's raised his game and he's done okay. But he'd have been nowhere near that if it wasn't for a season at Aberdeen. Ryan Christie did well out of that. Christopher Aya. There's a few examples, but you've only got half a chance of making it if you're on the fringes. If you go out and do it at another Scottish Premier League team, it remains to be seen if the Portuguese little sojourn works out for Mikey Johnson. I would suspect that he'll be a filler in and possibly away at the end of the season, but remains to be seen.
Well, of the current squad, just let me ask you a question. Who would you absolutely say we cannot afford to lose? Of the current squad.
There's quite a few. CCV, Matt O'Reilly, Hatate, Kyogo, Maeda, Abada.
And of those, who do you think might be at risk? You don't think any of those are at risk?
You said who can't we afford to lose? I'm telling you, we can't afford to lose any of them.
But would any of those at risk?
Like, you wave enough money at that board and they're all at risk, aren't they? But I think even the board and Brendan don't seem on the best sort of, they don't seem to be on the same terms at the minute. So I think if you try to sell an O'Reilly out from under him, that might just be the straw. That could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I'd be very surprised if he loses any of his first 11. The players that we've become reliant on, I don't think we'll lose any of them this window. I certainly hope not, but I would expect them all to be in play and potentially, 1 or 2 of them to be off in the summer.
Well, as you say, Paul, there are things that we can't affect, so there's no point in fretting too much about them. Let's just see what happens and then react with incandescent rage when that happens.
Or hugely.
All right, let's move it on. This is the section about the strips. Now, building on last Thursday's show where we featured Hail Hill History's tweet asking who else does or has played in the green and white hoops that Celtic have played in the past. We're going to do this little bit now. Now, Hail Hill History, as it's coming up to Christmas, I want to shine a light on this book. If you're looking for another stocking filler, Hail Hill History. If you want full details of Celtic's first ever league title, you can get my book, The Bold Boys, Glory to Their Name, available in the Celtic store or online from at Celtic Star Mag. So it's written by Matthew Marr, who we hope to get on at some stage to talk about this. David has the book on order. So
Yeah, as soon
we'll
as I
become-
receive it, I mean, it's only sold. So if you want to look for this book, you have to buy it through Celtic. It's not on Amazon. It's not on Google Reads or otherwise, because I looked. And usually Celtic are pretty good when it comes to delivery. As soon as I get the book, I'll read it, and then we'll get a wee video together, and hopefully in time for having a guest on.
And here's some information Matthew says about what it's about. Obviously, games, kidnappings, transfers are very different in that era in the 1890s. Riots, fan violence was much more common in those days. The new Celtic Park, so it was the season just after they moved from the original ground to this one. Bit of Celtic politics. Brother Walfrid left to go to London. And this is one part of a wider fight amongst Celtic officials on how the club should be run. You know, the way we all go on about, oh, it was set up as a charitable act. That didn't last very long. Very quickly, that shifted to become a money-making enterprise, and not everyone was happy with that. Football in the 1890s. So lots there. Now, the question as to who else played in the hoops, let's just run through some of these. Bucky Thistle, as we all know, coming up soon. Shamrock Rovers. These are all teams that play in green and white hoops at some time in their history that we have played. Sporting Lisbon. Belfast Celtic. Donegal Celtic. This is them playing against Warren Point. Brian will be tickled to notice the Cedar Cabs advert there. We grew up taking Cedar Cabs down the Antrim Road. Saint Gallen or St Gallen or however that's pronounced. Do you like how they used to pose in the old days? It's a shame we don't pose like that anymore, footballers. You've got like your older sister on the living room floor pose there. And then a couple of guys with one knee up. And then lots of little touches going on. Look at the little hands on arms and things. That's cute, isn't it? We should recreate that sort of pose among modern day players. Yeovil Town. QPR. Brian mentioned QPR. I thought he was joking. But they did play at some stage in green and white hoops. Hibernian, of course, the first Scottish team set up for relief of Irish immigrant suffering that played in green and white hoops, whether we like it or not. Rapid Vienna. Greuther Fürth. I've never heard of them. German team. Have you heard of them? Jablanek. Ferencváros. Real Betis. One of the more better known teams. Merthyr Tydfil. If only we had Ian on to tell us about Merthyr.
How did we play them?
Good question. Sheffield Wednesday. I found this one,
Ah.
actually.
I saw this one from you posting. Yeah.
That's the early 90s.
Brian was talking about Cliftonville having a Bumblebee kit at some time, and this is it. So he was right about that. Oh, and I mentioned during the show there must surely be a Greek team. And
Yeah,
Mickey was saying, oh, well, they have the Shamrock, but nobody plays in the hoops. But both of these teams have done in the past. Omonia, or however that's pronounced, and Panathinaikos. Now look at that Panathinaikos shirt. My goodness. Tell me that is not gorgeous. Huh? The Puma, the Shamrock, the simple arms, the collar. Gotta love that, huh? Don't you think?
If it's not broke, don't fix it. It's gorgeous, isn't it?
That is quality. The old tops are class before all the greedy bastard sponsors. You're absolutely right. That's a beautiful top, but if you stick a flipping Daffabet in lowercase in the middle of that, and yeah, there you go.
Sponsorless always.
Always sponsorless. The hell with these sponsors. But that's very interesting, isn't it? All those strips.
I think it's going to be a
Yes.
fascinating read. I can't wait to read it.
Okay, so let's move on then to social media. Or perhaps before we do, Real Betis were there, and we do have a little message from Real Betis, actually, especially for us.
Pay attention. This is totally free and great crack. The least you can do is subscribe. Do it now. Cheers.
Cheers, Real Betis. Appreciate
It's very
that.
good of them.
All right, social media. David.
No Hibs preview.
Oh, yeah, damn it. You're
Go,
right.
let's do it.
Hibs preview. I've jumped forward one with the strip because we're running
right.
out of time. Hibs preview then. There was a
think we've got
comment
the team.
earlier on, I think, which is very apposite, which I will bring up. Maybe you can start, David. Go ahead.
Well, I think the team for that game has picked itself, hasn't it, after the second half? So no surprises there. I think we've got to go with that team. I'm going to go, I think with the rocket from Brendan, I think we're going to go for a 3-0.
Now, the thing about this game, I think, is Hibs are pretty good and they're in a good run and they've got a new manager and they're beginning to establish an identity and all that, which might play into our hands if they come and try and play against us and then we beat them because we're better than them. Paul, are you hoping that that's the case? Or will the Hibs manager play the same game as everybody else?
I don't think he will. Montgomery's got a track record of playing reasonably attractive football when he was down here. And he's had a bit of a stop-start kind of early reign at Hibs. He had a good result against Aberdeen the other night, last night. Albeit I think Barry Robson said that he could have, if it had been a boxing match, they'd have stopped it. I think he said they had 24 shots and missed a penalty, so they should have won that game. But I expect a further reaction. We're at home under the lights. I hope he makes some changes and those players getting a start. It brings that intensity from the first minute. And you know what it's like, you get, whether it's under the lights or even on the weekend, get an early goal at Celtic Park and you can run right over the top of teams. So I don't necessarily think that'll happen, but I would love to see us come out of the blocks fast, give 2 or 3 players a start that otherwise that haven't had some game time. Like I said, Mikey Johnson. I'd be tempted to maybe mix it up and somehow play O and Kyogo. And if you're not going to do that, then because that'd be one way to replace Turnbull. You could do that, or you could start Kyogo and push McGregor forward and play Tomoki, as I said earlier. So one of those two things. I want to see us do something different. We've been too similar in recent games, and it's predictable. And teams have worked out how to stop us. And to the earlier points, it takes a bit of individual brilliance or some really good link up play to sort of break that down. So I'd like to see us spring a little bit of a surprise here and there, and try and take the game to them from the first minute.
Well, Strangelove the Doctor saying Hibs will have taken confidence from their result at the weekend, but they will not look to play football. They'll be sitting deep and look to exploit space with targeted long balls. Whereas James has a slightly more positive view. Says we're going to do them 41. We're going to score 41 goals, he says. Awesome. David, do you think we've got much to fear from Hibs in terms of their goal threat?
Oh, no, I don't actually. I think there's been this lackadaisical element to the squad that we've been observing for a while, and I think Brendan has called it out. So I think anything less than a clean win just won't do. It would just be, I don't think it would do Brendan's reputation as well as the players even worse. So no, I don't think so. I think I'm just going to stick with 3-0. Or 41.
Do you want to give us a prediction, Paul, in terms of the score?
I'm going to suggest we might get a clean sheet. 2-0.
I'll go for 2-1 for a laugh. I was about that. They get a goal from an in-swinging corner that drops in about the 6-yard box. And then there's a Fuster cluck and somehow the ball goes in.
Can't imagine where you've come up with that from.
That's what I would do. All right. Do I have your permission to move on to social media?
You may.
David, this is you.
I seem to remember. Did we not done this already? So yeah, Lone Star. I saw this. It was the absolute dedication of them at 6 a.m. and 34 degrees because I didn't know what happened when I saw this post. But then apparently I saw a later post and the landlord hadn't turned up to let them in, although they'd agreed beforehand. But the dedication of these guys, and some of them in shorts at 6 o'clock in the morning around phones to watch the game, it's just tremendous dedication. I mean, I've done a 4 o'clock in the morning on the bar with French CSE in Kuala Lumpur. I've done that 4 o'clock in the morning, but we were in a bar and we had beer and everything, so inside, so it doesn't compete with us. So Lone Star, that's off.
That's funny. We featured Lone Star CSC on the last show because they were at the or they had representatives at the Lazio game.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah. So well, one of their tweets was about getting locked out and never having been treated so badly at an away game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Lone Star CSC, the home of all things Celtic in Dallas, Texas area. Gatherings throughout the year for games, banter, frivolity, and charity. A warm welcome for all, which is ironic because it doesn't look very warm.
Yeah.
Sitting outside with a
That's
couple of boxes
dedication.
of donuts.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that 34 degrees is Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Well, things are certainly hotting up here in the Celtic World studio, as Paul keeps us abreast of recent developments here in the life of our substitute keeper. Go ahead.
Well, I think one of my colleagues from another Celtic podcast flicked this across to me earlier, and with just the tagline, "Joe's heart competition hard at it." So this is the bold Ben hanging out with his missus in Sydney. There was 3 or 4 photos on this little Instagram post.
Oh dear.
Family show.
I was wondering how low I could scroll down there.
If you scooted across to the next photo, one of the next photos, you can quite clearly see he's in Sydney and hanging out in and around Bondi
I don't want to do any more
with
of
his
that.
missus. So yeah, this probably confirms that we definitely should be in the market for a new goalkeeper, because it doesn't look like he's putting any pressure on Bain as a second choice, which is extremely disturbing that Scott Bain is still the second choice goalkeeper at Celtic, and neither of them are obviously going to be challenging Joe Hart anytime soon. So I just thought it was a little bit of a strange position for us to be in. And there was a comment earlier on, I was trying to find it, where we were talking about players that were probably on their way, and somebody had listed a bunch of players, and the bold Ben was one of them. I've lost it now, but yeah, I think it's fair to say that he will not be contributing too much more in a Celtic kit, and he's probably looking for a club in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Okay, this is mine quickly. Well, not that quickly. A new era for the sports industry. It's time for folks to really start looking at how spatial computing will change sports forever. Here on the Celtic World, we like to bring you the very latest cutting-edge technological developments and pictures of women in bikinis. But here is what used to cost millions and take weeks can now happen in real time and cost close to nothing. Look at this. Now, I'm going to play that, make it full screen. Spatial computing. This could be the future of how you watch sports, like right in front of you. You know, there are like railway people running about in front of your eyes. So you could be sitting down with your mates, watching the game round a table, and you've all got different views. This is a game of basketball that's going on, obviously. You know that.
Really?
But you can see it's on the TV there, and then this is the...
So that's literally replicating what's on the...
Yeah,
and that's live.
yeah.
That's live replication.
Close to real time, they say. Imagine watching a Celtic game, all sitting around the table with your pints, shouting at it. You've all got different views. You're all effectively in different parts of the stadium. That's
very
awesome,
random.
isn't it? Isn't it good though? Gotta say.
It's better than Celtic TV.
Just a
Again,
touch.
not a high bar.
No, indeed, but it's a high bar to produce a Celtic show as entertaining as this one.
I love a Celtic world. If I haven't subscribed yet, I am gonna do it right now. Woohoo!
Woohoo! God, the excitement there is palpable. Amazing, but still not as impressive as Benji's missus, his strange love. James Floyd. It's crazy man cool though. Rearrange those words into something that makes sense. It's crazy cool though, man. All right, anyway. We're beginning to blether. I think it's time to wrap up the show, don't you?
The grammar Nazi's out again. Careful.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone in the comments for joining in. It's been a lot of fun tonight, and we'll be back in what day is today? Is today Monday?
It is.
We're
Monday.
back on Thursday for another fascinating show where we'll be looking back at the game against Hibs. So let's hope that is another 3 points in the bag, and we continue to hold everyone off until the massive January window where we go shopping and spend. Goodbye, everyone.
Cheers.